Thanks for joining us on Veterans Voices. I'm Ryan Luurtsema, Assistant Director of the Veteran and Military Resource Center here at Ocean County College. At Ocean County College, we're introducing a new program and initiative, Veterans Voices. You'll have a unique opportunity to listen and learn how military and veteran advocates, dedicated individuals, organizations from around New Jersey are making a difference, even during these most troubling times. With us today, we have a special guest, Lieutenant Commander Kristin Leone. From the United States Naval Reserves, while serving as a Navy nurse for over 10 years, she is a critical care nurse for over 20 years. Kristen has been selected as the First Grand Marshal of the Philadelphia Veterans Day Parade, as well as holds the position of President of Haven Women. The organization combats female military and veteran homelessness, works to redevelop self-confidence in pursuit of civilian goals of securing employment and security of permanent housing. Residents receive medical, mental health, and addiction counseling, employment training, as well as tools to achieve self-sufficiency. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Thank you for coming in. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Lieutenant Commander Kristin Leone, a Navy nurse in the reserves for 11 years and counting now. I'm hoping to make the 20. So I am also a nurse in the civilian side of 23 years, and my background is pediatric and adult intensive care, home care, and nursing education. And I have my own TV show as well, filmed out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I have a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo, and I like to go to the gun range. And my son is going to be 19 in August.
You have quite the rounded foundation of hobbies there.
Yes, quite the plethora, yes. I like the beach, but I also like to blow things up. So,
Can you describe what diversity challenges did you have joining the military?
So I'd have to say that I didn't really face much adversity when I got in. I think my biggest challenge getting in was actually my family.
Okay.
You know, I grew up in a very, protective Italian family. Even though I come from a family of military, I guess when I decided that I wanted to join, it made, my mom and dad a little nervous. But, I have my grandfather who was, deceased now, but was on a destroyer during World War II in the Navy, and my uncle was a career Air Force, and I have several uncles on my mom's side that were Army, and so the family history was there, the tradition was there, and I hit a point in my life where I said it's now or never, and I really felt the call to serve my country. And for me, being the first woman in my family to serve was really kind of special and meaningful.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate your history background as far as the purpose of why you joined the Navy as well. That's really touching. When you decided to become a nurse in the civilian sector, what made you want to follow that in the military? Did you not want to diversify, or you wanted just to pursue that specialty, if you will?
That's a great question, actually, because I'm, anybody who knows me, particularly my parents, know that I don't like to sit still, and I like being challenged. And I wanted to serve my country, and I wanted to be able to do things as a nurse that I wouldn't be able to get to do in the civilian side. And I had been a nurse for 12 years by the time I joined the service, and thought, you know what, I really want to serve my country, and I want to serve as a nurse. And I really had the intention of doing medical missions and serving underprivileged populations. So that's kind of what, several factors drove it, but the driving force was really wanting to serve my country and to be diverse, and just really wanting to push myself and challenge myself.
Truly, it's a challenging, because you're taking your civilian professional and education expertise and putting it into the military platform, and now vice versa. Yeah. So how has COVID impacted your not just professional expertise on the civilian sector, but for the military side? Has it been challenging, or?
Well, yeah, challenging to say the least. I was working in the ICU, and as things were starting to get a little hairy, I got the call from, senior leadership, hey, if we need you to go somewhere, can you go? And I said, yes. My son was, just about out of high school at that point and was on home instruction. And, I didn't really have anything, I was teaching and I was working, but I said, if the country needs me, then the country needs me, and that's totally fine. And I actually packed a bag and waited for the call that didn't come. But I wound up serving in my own community and working in my local, ICU in my local hospital. And it's been a challenge to say the least, because I think a lot of people don't know what nurses really do, because TV, you can't rely on TV shows. They don't get it right. And there are no nursing characters in any of the medical shows that are out there right now. So, in the ICU, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of movement. And, to take all the IV pumps that normally sit in a patient's room and now put them outside the patient's room, because they didn't want us in the rooms any more than we have to when this pandemic hit. We were conserving PPE, and we just didn't know, like, even if we had our PPE, we really didn't know if we were going to be safe or not. So it was, we put all the IV pumps outside the rooms to titrate our medications, and the ventilator monitors were outside the rooms as well, so the respiratory therapists could make adjustments to, to the ventilator if need be. And what that does is that creates even more noise, because the slave station monitors that were already at the nurses' stations are going off, and now you have pumps going off outside all of the rooms, and the ventilators were going off outside all the rooms. So there was really a lot of noise. And inside the rooms, every room had a HEPA filter to kind of filter out any, contaminants that were in the air. So it was a really stressful environment. And for me, having been deployed to Afghanistan in 2015, it was, just like when you get deployed, you're afraid because you don't know what to expect, but then you just kind of, okay, you settle in, this is my new norm and this is how it is. So for me, it was, okay, it's like being back out, on deployment. Yes, just kind of settle in, catch your breath, and focus on the mission. So for me, that's kind of, how I got myself centered and ready to go into battle every day for work. The downside of all the noise is that it's a bit of a trigger for me. Having been deployed and having PTSD, now I have to go into the environment, kind of where there's a lot of noise in and out of the room. So you have to, consciously, for me, I had to consciously every day come home and kind of just, number one, shower, because, we didn't want to have any germs on us. So, showered and, sanitized everything. And then I needed to just, sit for a few minutes with no noise, because you were in so much chaos during the day that you kind of needed that quiet time to just kind of
really decompress.
Yeah.
But now with your experience and your deployment and just trauma experience, were you able to, I guess, train or educate your peers on the civilian sector when the pandemic hit, because you're so used to the environment already? Was there an opportunity there? Or?
So, not really training per se, but I tried to make sure that I brought a good attitude every day, and I brought a smile every day and said good morning to everybody, which is kind of my norm anyway. I'm pretty bubbly and bright, and I like to be, I'm the morning person, clearly. And I did try to talk to people to say, hey, this is similar to when I was deployed. Like, I know you're scared, but just take a deep breath, and we're all in it together. So we're going to get through it together. And what the nice thing that Versua did was, when they shut down the peds floor, because we weren't taking care of any kids, and they shut down the ORs, they repurposed those nurses to the med-surg floors and the ICU. So we had buddies.
Oh, it's excellent.
Which was really great, because they could stock our carts if we needed to, and they ran our labs if we needed to down to the lab, because we couldn't put any of the blood in the tube system for fear that it would break and spread germs. So all the blood had to be hand walked down to the lab. If we needed medications, they would go and pick it up. If we needed another set of hands to turn a patient, they were there to help us. So it really returned to, well, for nursing, 30-some years ago, and up until then, we had team nursing. So it was really kind of a return to the way nursing used to be. And for a military nurse, that's how things are done. We all work together for the good of the mission. So there were definitely good things about it, and being someone who just kind of modeled the behavior was helpful. Trying and reminding people, because nurses were super great at taking care of other people, but we're terrible at taking care of ourselves. And having learned that the hard way post-deployment, it's the one thing that I preach now. And this was a rough environment to be working in, and patients were dying in the ICU left and right, and families weren't allowed to come in, which was really hard for us, because we're human too, and having families not be able to be with their loved one when they were passing away was really hard. And there were a lot of us who were the only person in the room when a patient passed away. And I hit a point, early last summer where I said, if I have to do one more Zoom meeting and with a family as their loved one dies, I think I'm going to have to just go work at PetSmart or something, because it's getting to be too, even for somebody like me who was very resilient, it was getting to be a little much.
Absolutely.
But now, things are definitely slowing down, and we're really getting a hold on it, and the numbers are way down in the unit, and it's, we can look back and go, you remember this time last year where we were, crazy, and now it's like, now we're decompressed, and it's, we can get back to doing all the other things that we do in the ICU, and it's, almost business as usual. We're still running around with goggles and masks, and we can't see anybody, and it's, super frustrating. But
hopefully, in time coming, the culture will be back to normal multiplicatively.
Yes. It's very hard to yell at a doctor through a mask and your goggles,
So let's turn it a little bit
Okay.
more positive. Tell us about your Grand Marshaling of the Veterans Day Parade, the first female.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That came as a surprise, and a funny story how that came about. As last year, 2020 was a rough year for a lot of people, and I don't like to sit still. So I ran for Miss Veteran America, and it is a platform that helps support Final Salute, which is another organization that helps homeless female veterans and their children. And as I was advocating for homeless female veterans and speaking, to anybody who would sit and listen to me, I reached out to Drexel University, who I got my master's from in 2019, and they're very military friendly. So I reached out to the head of Veteran Affairs and said, hey, I'm running for Miss Veteran America. I'm spreading awareness. Is there anybody else that you would know of with your connections that I should talk to? And Dr. Rebecca Wiedensahl, who's amazing and knows everybody, she's, oh, sure. And I think I got 15 emails from her and 15 connections, which was fabulous. And I also got the opportunity to speak at Drexel at their annual Veterans Day luncheon, which I was very happy to be a part of. And Rebecca, I didn't know this, but the Philadelphia Veterans Day Parade had put out a call for nominees for the Grand Marshal, and Rebecca nominated me. And I got the call from Rebecca, hey, did you hear? And I was like, what? She's like, oh, they selected you as the Grand Marshal this year. And I was like, so I was very excited and very happy. And then once, I talked to the head of the parade, and he said, you're the first female Grand Marshal. I went, oh. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I'm very proud and honored to have that title, because there's not a lot of strong women for young girls to look up to. We have some good ones out there. I think Pink's a great role model, and I think Ronda Rousey does a good job of being, professional and strong. But in terms of normal, everyday women that girls see in their community, there's just not a lot out there. So for me to be the face of the Veterans Day Parade last year, was quite the honor. And they said, listen, don't be disappointed, because we're doing things virtually this year. Next year, you're coming back, because we want you to get the full effect of sitting in the car and getting to wave to everybody. And that's all well and good and fun, but I want, girls to look at me and see me and be like, hey, that's pretty cool. I might be able to do that one day. And a friend of mine said to me a few months ago, I said, do you know if you say, hey Siri or hey Alexa, if you ask them who the first female Grand Marshal is, it says your name? I said, no, I didn't know that, but that's even cooler, I think. But I take my role seriously. I have had a lot of success over the years, but I've also had a lot of adversities. I've been a victim of domestic violence. I've suffered multiple miscarriages. I've had to work for everything that I've had. So I want people to know that, yes, she's successful and she's a great role model, but she also worked hard to get there, and that's important to me.
I think every role model has to have that backstory. The backstory creates the drive, the mission, and really the path forward for anyone who believes that it's a perfect colored picture of that person who's successful. And I have to personally just applaud you for that. It's not just a special person in a special circumstance. It's very serendipitous, is that you reached out to an old colleague, and now you're the Grand Marshal of the Veterans Day Parade, the first female. It's pretty cool. It really is.
It is. It's exciting. It's, I'm, a part of history. It's, You and I were talking about Tori Fisher earlier, and she's the first woman to open, a brewery, a veteran to open a brewery in the country. And now maybe next year, the Miss Veteran America students will be studying me and memorizing, who I was. So it's, it's exciting. And I don't have a daughter, but I'm in the community, like I said, teaching. I teach Taekwondo, and I'm a sub nurse in schools, and I speak at schools. And I want girls to look at me and be like, she's super awesome, and she's and she's had a lot of success, and I want to be like that.
It's a lot about contributing to the social norms of community. It is, if you have a specialty and a passion, how are you educating others with that? And I think anyone and everybody can be a doctor, can be an educator, can be an advocate, can be a mentor to anybody.
Right.
As long as you know that you believe in yourself, that you are special. I think that's what we're doing here on Veterans Voices. And that's our primary mission, is to showcase these individuals like yourself that's really paved these roads for everyone else.
Right.
It's so cool. I'd really like to delve into Haven.
Yeah.
And you and I spoke earlier about it. There's not a lot of advocacy out there for female veterans or military affiliated females. And I believe this is an opportunity to really showcase the need, the want, and really the possible outcomes. So how do you get involved? How do you start with that?
So like I said last year, as I was running for Miss Veteran America, and I was talking to anybody who was, willing to listen to me, and I was talking to, not just even, local mayors and, local small organizations, but I was networking with, senators and congressmen, congresswomen, assemblywomen. Like, I was everywhere, and I had the opportunity to speak on a radio show that is in Ocean City, and with Joe Griffey's and the Welcome Home Show.
Okay.
And the same day that I was on, my friend Reverend Dr. Paul McCullough was on, who now has his own radio show, and we talk about very similar things. And Paul and I were talking, because I had my sash on for Miss Veteran America finalist, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm advocating for homeless female veterans." And he said, "Really?" He said, "You should join our board." I said, "The board of what? I've never been on a board. I mean, I've been a nurse, and I've been in the military, and I've been, an athlete, but I didn't even know what I've heard of board of directors, but I never really knew what they did." So after the show, we kind of sat and talked, and we exchanged numbers, and he said, "I think you would be great." He's like, "I'm the only veteran on the board right now. We need more veterans, especially female veterans. We are a homeless female veterans shelter." I said, "Okay, great." So I submitted my application, and I got unanimously pushed through. So I joined the board, and the shelter is on Baltimore Avenue in Philadelphia, and we have 12 slots for homeless female veterans, and we work with Impact Services in the VA to get the ladies in the house and provide them the support that they need. And as luck would have it, depending on how you look at it, there's been some turnover in leadership, and they have voted me in as their president.
So where do you see the organization going as you just got your nomination? What's your immediate mission that you're setting forward for Haven?
So the mission right now, the immediate goal is to, we received a grant from Comcast to purchase technology for the ladies of the house. So we are going to be purchasing tablets for them and training them how to use the tablets. And then once we do that, then we can implement our curriculum, if you will, or opportunities for community engagement. We have several volunteers who are going to be teaching lots of different classes, but because of COVID right now, we will be doing things via Zoom, which is great, so we can adapt and overcome. We're used to that as military.
Absolutely.
But we can't do that without the technology first. We have to get the tablets in the house, train the ladies on it, and then once they eventually find their permanent housing and move into that permanent housing, they can take that tablet with them so they can still stay connected to whatever resources they need to. So that's our immediate goal in the next, month, I would say month or two, is get the tablets, get them trained, implement our curriculum. And we have great volunteers who are going to be teaching resume writing and interview tips and tricks, and I'm going to be teaching self-defense and cooking, and we have a bank coming in to talk about financial stewardship and budgeting. Let's be honest, our kids aren't even getting that in high school, quite frankly. So
That's very true.
We're kind of above the bar in terms of what we need to give these ladies to help them be successful. And we're working with Project Refit. They have they have Zoom meetings 3 times a week once we get the ladies these tablets, they can get, mental health support that they may be craving and needing. Women are very visible when we're in the military, but then once we come out, we become very invisible. And, one of the things, now that we're going to go back to drilling in person, I'm going to bring up to my, commanding officer is, I would really like to give a brief to the NOSC on really what's going on in the world of homeless veterans, because homeless female veterans are the fastest rising population of homeless in the country right now, faster than their male counterparts and faster than their female non-military counterparts. And like I said, I'm in the military currently, and last year when I found out how bad the problem was, I was almost a little embarrassed that I'm in the service and didn't even know that the problem was this bad. So we need to talk about it for sure. So I'm very grateful to come on and talk about Haven and the issue, because we have a lot of good things that are coming. And connecting with the women in the House, the advantage I have being, even being on the board, the advantage I had was that I know from where they come. Like I said, I was in an abusive marriage and struggled financially and had to apply to a grant for the state to pay my bills at one point, and that could have been me. So I know where they're coming from to a certain extent, that I've struggled and I know. And but again, women, we have a hard time asking for help because we're so used to doing for everyone. So I'm really honored to be on the board, and now that I'm president, it's I feel like now the organization has some, we have some credibility with me at the helm, and I'm looking forward to implementing these programs, seeing them be successful, move forward, and eventually expanding, because ultimately the goal is to be able to expand where we can have a place for women to come with their children, because the only disadvantage that Haven has right now is that we don't have space for children. And that brings a whole nother facet in. We have to think about, okay, schools and immunizations and supports and resources for them as well. So the goal is to get everything the women they need, get this curriculum going, and then keep applying for grants so that we can expand and help the ladies, because some of them do have children, but they're not obviously with them, and they have to give them to friends and family members. And obviously the goal is to keep families together, not separate them.
We've had in my tenure so far here is that at OCC we had a few situations of female veterans and military connected family members that were homeless, but truthfully we didn't have a location to send to for us to outreach.
Right.
That specifically cater to military and veteran families, of course.
Right.
For Haven out in Philly, are you partnering or looking into getting a closer relationship for Veteran Affairs, their local clinic there? I'm not familiar. I work with the Brick Clinic here in New Jersey, but I know from my standpoint is that there's been a lot of escalated discussion about female medical care with the VA, so that's very dear to me.
Right.
On a issue that I'm combating on our end. But what's your perception on that?
So that's an interesting question that you bring up, and a great point. I actually just had Fern Billett on my TV show last month, and she's the congressional liaison and community outreach coordinator for the VA in Philadelphia. And she does a lot of outreach, and in addition to speaking with political in the political arena. But the Philadelphia VA actually is doing a lot of things very well for women veterans.
Excellent.
And they have a whole women's wing, and they even have signs up, and they're doing a lot of education with their folks over there at the Philly VA about women are veterans too. Don't assume just because a woman is there, she's there with her husband, brother, father. And the sad thing is the VA is making a lot of good changes, but you and I are very well aware that if you have a bad experience somewhere, you're going to tell everybody that you come into contact with, but if you have a positive experience, you may not tell as many people. So the VA is making a lot of changes, and they're doing a lot of good. It's just kind of slow to get out to the women veterans. We know 80% of female veterans don't use the VA for their health care. That's a lot of women veterans who are unsupported and underrepresented. So, great women like Fern are spreading the word, hey, here's what we're doing at our facility. are things going to be the same at every facility? I'm sure that it's not.
Eventually.
But it's, it's up to, people like yourself and me to, use our voice and our platforms to kind of spread the good word and put information out there so that people know. I'm on some of the Facebook groups and I hear women complaining about the VA, but I also hear some women saying, hey, I had some pretty good care. So, we obviously just need to tip the scales in our favor so that we're swinging the pendulum in the right direction. But I'm not surprised, that to hear some of these stories, because even out in public, women are still being discriminated against in the military. I had my combat hospital sweatshirt on months ago in Wawa, and I love my combat hospital sweatshirt, and I feel so proud when I wear it. And plus it's super comfy. But a gentleman saw my sweatshirt, and I was getting the look, and from somebody looking at me when I'm in my military gear, and I'm like, here it comes. And oh, is your husband in the service? No, I'm in the service, and I was deployed to Afghanistan. And then some of them usually go, oh, well, thank you for your service. Thank you very much. And women have been serving. I know. Can you buy my coffee for me? Thanks. Pay it forward. It's just that we still have to overcome this perception that military is men, and because the reality is women have been serving in the military since the Revolutionary War.
Absolutely.
I mean, Deborah Sampson took a bullet, pulled it out herself, and got back in the fight during the Revolutionary War. Dr. Mary Walker was the first woman to win the Congressional Medal of Honor, and there's never been a woman since then to earn it. We just said, they're in, the infantry school now, and they're graduating and from that school, and they're in combat roles now, and we're kind of kicking ass and taking names. So it's
my sister, I'm one of 3 in the military. I'm the first one out and the youngest that joined, but my sister was the first one, and she was a real pathway paver. She was part of the female engagement team out in Seattle.
Oh, great.
Or Fort Lewis, excuse me. 4 deployments under her belt. I mean, she's an incredible steward of the capabilities.
Right.
I'll put it at that.
Right. And
I believe the language absolutely has to change. And that kind of goes into my next topic, where I want to kind of poke your brain a little bit, is reciprocity with education. One of the biggest things as far as New Jersey is concerned is educational reciprocity and nurse certificates from military and then to the civilian sector. It's a personal topic for me because OCC has a great, incredible nursing program. But when veterans get out, especially like naval nurses or corpsmen, they have extensive knowledge and education under their belt from the military, but it's not a certifiable transfer to the civilian sector. What's your point on that? What's your viewpoints on that?
I think that's a matter of conversations happening between, the military medical folks and then the civilian side medical folks, because you're absolutely right. I mean, I've worked with some great corpsmen, on the active duty side and the civilian side, in the reserve side of the house, but they come out and they don't function in the same capacity. I have worked with LPNs in the Navy, and they do a lot. Like, they can give blood, they can give, they can do a lot of things, but when they come home and try to get a job as an LPN, they're in home care and they're in nursing homes, and but they're capable of so much more. So I think the military, because the Army's got great corpsmen, and the Marines use us, but I think there needs to be conversations between both sides and comparing how we were trained, and let's develop, if you have 500 hours of military medical service, that equates to so many credits in in a community program to apply, because you're absolutely right. We could be losing some great folks in that we really need in the medical field, especially in nursing, and especially right now. This pandemic has really I think it's fried a lot of nurses mentally and physically, and we're going to be, look, we were short-staffed to begin with in nursing. We didn't need the pandemic to help us out and make it worse. So yes, I definitely think some conversations need to be starting to be had at the table, because we could be gaining, the civilian sector could be gaining some great team players, hard workers, dedicated, smart individuals.
I just think it's a very interesting topic, and it's not just nurses, but I think it's most paramount for New Jersey specifically,
Yeah.
because it's a medical-driven state as far as an industry goes for careers. And of course, we have the Joint Base here, which
Right.
one of the largest medical units on the East Coast. But that goes for pilots. That goes for my previous job in the Ordnance Corps. You know, we were not transferable with our credentials. You know, but I think it's a discussion. I think it's a further discussion
Absolutely.
with many more people involved from both ends and bring it to the same table. I'd like to kind of close in with you and kind of get your perception on what happens next with not just in COVID land that we're in, but for yourself, for you, what's your next chapter that you see?
Oh God, if you ask me this question next week, you'll probably get a completely different answer, quite frankly. You know, for me, I'm really, you know, I'm still in the reserves. I'm going into a drill weekend this coming weekend, so I still have my obligations to the service, and you know, I want to continue my pursuit of leadership roles, you know, in the military and in the Navy, and I'm looking forward to other opportunities to really showcase my ability to lead and lead a team and help other people be successful, which is really important to me as a leader. Nursing wise, I love what I do. You know, I love working in the ICU. I love teaching pediatrics with the nursing students. I love being able to help new nurses getting ready to go out into the workforce. Like I had a horrible experience when I first became a nurse, and you know, may Hahnemann rest in peace. And that kind of shaped, you know, my career. And so I love helping students getting ready to go out into the workforce and be nurses, you know, and I tell them being a nurse is hard. It's hard work, but being a good nurse is, you just need to be human, and holding hands and listening to your patients and really going that extra mile is important. But at the same time, you have to fill your bucket yourself and take care of yourself to be able to take care of other people. So, you know, I want to continue being a great naval officer. I want to continue being a great nurse and a great mom and a great role model to my community. And I'm really looking forward to where Haven is going and being able to lead, you know, expand my role in the community. My goal, my tangible goal that was set before Haven even came into the picture, actually was to write a children's book that's military themed, because again, girls don't have a lot of role models. So I really want to write a children's book geared towards kids and encourage them to, you know, go into the military and be strong leaders. So that's the goal for the year, is to, you know, continue the journey as naval officer, nurse, and mom, and then expand my role as the president of Haven and take that to, you know, again, taking care of my community from the back, on the back end. And, you know.
You have quite the story to be told.
I do, yes. Eventually I'll write a
Very
memoir,
excited.
but.
We'll definitely be staying in touch.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you, Kristen, for being part of the show.
Thank you for having me today, Ryan.
Thank you for watching Veterans Voices. If you want to learn more about the show or want to participate in it, please email me at rluurtsema@ocean.edu. And go to our military and veteran page at www.ocean/veteran.edu. I'm your host, Ryan Luurtsema. Join us next time on Veterans Voices.